Today in the Create This book, we're going to be trying something a little bit crazy. We're going to be painting and then we're going to try collage, which is going to be a lot of fun, but I don't know how we're going to make it look good. I'm kind of scared, but let's do it. And we're going straight ahead into collage. There's a lot of supplies we need to get. Cutting knife and tweezers. In this drawer, the cutting mat, of course. And obviously we're gonna need the Create This book with lots of different papers. You can see this is completely overflowing now. We've definitely got enough in here. We need a pencil, maybe some coloring pencils. I think that's everything. But what are we going to do today? Last time we painted the Titanic. So the next prompt is create a menu. I found this scrap piece of black card, which is gonna look great with these metallic pens. So the plan. This is the menu. And on this menu, we need to collect everything that we need for a dinner. And I think this gold frame is already making this look like a menu. But you know what? I think adding a metallic silver to the mix is also going to make this pop. But what's on the menu for dinner? I'm reaching for this lovely Caran d'Ache pencil. It's not often I use a light shade on black and it looks so cool, even if it just snapped a little bit. What are the components you need for dinner? Well, for starters, you need a table. Secondly, I think you could do with some chairs, maybe 2 chairs in this fun homely style, but I think we're gonna need a few more, maybe in a slightly rounder style, even though this is probably completely pushing my skills. I don't know if I'm actually gonna be able to do this, but we'll give it a go. We've got a table, we've got 4 chairs, 4 placemats, and this dinner is at 4 stages. We've got a starter, main, dessert, and drink. These are all gonna be separate pieces of paper, but as you can see in this key, I'm also going to be using alcohol markers on top. The biggest reason for this is there are other details that we need to add, like a table runner on the table, and obviously we need to add food to the plates. But this is the Create This book. We're already adding separate pieces of paper here, and you would not believe how big it's looking already. So this was my original plan. I did this sketch for fun, and the entire concept is this here. We're using collage to create the setup for a dinner, but then I absolutely loved the initial sketches on the other side, and I knew we just had to do that. So here it is, the menu. And first up, we need a table. And there's loads of different papers we could use. Because I'm trying to be careful to not add too many layers to this book, I don't want it to be so bumpy that I'm not really going to be able to draw in it in future, and I also don't want it to fall apart. The table is that gorgeous orange shade, and then I picked out a fun pattern for the chair. Now, not only are we doing collage, this is pretty much the first time that I'm properly using this knife. And I can't believe it actually worked. Like, it was difficult. You can see it's not going to plan, but it's kind of working. I can see how people could figure this out. Maybe not me, maybe not today. I'm trying my best, but it's very difficult. It was kind of bendy. I really struggled, but that is our first chair complete. Look at it, it's kind of cute. And now we need more papers. There are darker ones. There's also these really cute butterflies and floral pieces. And I think some of these floral ones are gonna work. They don't look like chairs, obviously, but I can see how they might have looked like fabric, like vintage fabric. I see the vibe. And these chairs are only small, so there's no point wasting huge pieces of paper for this. I mean, these are the perfect size, and I'm starting to have fun here. I'm starting to get more comfortable. It's kind of going to plan, and already we've got 2 chairs. Next, we need to make this type of chair. I think it makes sense to have 2 different types. Most pubs in Britain do. It has like this cozy, homely feel. So these papers should also look different. We need them to stand out, and these 2 can be a little bit darker because they're not going to be next to each other. They're not going to be opposite. these are going to be diagonal. And I think these shapes are a little bit easier to make. I have high hopes for these chairs. Getting a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more confident. And I think that's kind of cute. So I'm just going to trace around the one that we've created because I'm happy with it and try to cut the next one in a similar way. My biggest plan here is to just not slice the entire thing in half and not accidentally cut the wrong parts. I need the bottom of the chair to be attached to the top, and that might not seem like a big ask, but I have no experience here. So what's next? We need placemats. We need 4. So we need some fun and interesting styles, and they need to look different from each other. Maybe we could reuse this dark material, but we also need food. The starter, main, dessert, and drink. I do want to reuse some of these papers again. I don't think we're going to need the pencils out anymore, but in order to know if it's going to match or not, we need to cut out these placemats. That's what the food's going to be going on top of, so it only makes sense. As long as we don't have the same patterns overlapping, I think it will look a little bit cohesive to reuse some of the materials. So I'm quickly sketching out the food, trying my best to cut out a circle with a knife. Do you know how difficult this is? And it's also at this point that I completely messed up and accidentally cut the wrong ones. I kept getting really confused with my placement of the placemats. So I did have to swap the dessert and the main over, but that's okay. I'm grabbing this gorgeous pastel violet shade. I had no idea what materials we'd be using, so I didn't know what color alcohol markers we'd need, but I think this color might work perfect for this table. We just need a little bit of an accent, a little bit more color without it taking away from everything else. And now we need to reach for those alcohol markers again to draw the food. And this got me thinking, what is my ideal meal? Well, for starters, I think it's got to be halloumi fries. They're simple, they're consistent, they are always good. For my main course, a roast dinner. I know it's like the most cliche British thing ever, but it would have to be a roast dinner with gammon. For dessert, I'm keeping it simple, going for a nice little cheesecake. And for the drink, Fanta fruit twist. It's literally the best flavor fizzy drink there is. So that's it. That's my ideal menu, my ideal meal. And now we're just sticking everything down. This might have been the scariest part. First, we need the chairs popped in place, for the table to then go on top, for the placemats to be set down. Everything has its own spot. Very precise, very scary. And then finally, we can set down the food in place. The starter going into the main course, into the dessert, and then on the final placemat, I'm popping down that tiny little drink. But I've decided to reach for a red fine liner, a little bit on the food, and spontaneously adding this random background in. It's just squiggles. I guess it kind of looks like carpet. Yeah, let's say that I'm going for carpet. And with that, we need to move on to the second prompt. Create a robot. When I saw this prompt, I knew exactly what to do. We're painting this. But what is this? Well, in this tiny little sketchbook, I took part in March of Robots in 2023, and I created this piece. This one is my favorite. My partner complained that it doesn't look like a robot at all, and it probably doesn't, but I love it. I got some chocolate, and I've got the perfect paints for these colors. The acrylic gouache. Look how gorgeous all of these pastel shades are. They are literally perfect. I've also got the big tubes, which we might need for some extra colors. Some water, rubbing out all of those lines a little bit too well. We've kind of lost the sketch. And the first thing we need to do is paint that background. I have no clue how well the paint's gonna work on this paper. It's just super cheap drawing paper that I found in my drawer, but we're gonna try it anyway. So, what is the plan for this piece? I would like to redraw that tiny little painting, nice and big, give it the space it deserves, and make it better. I think it needs to look more like a robot. I got a little bit carried away with the art challenge. Basically, you have a prompt every single day, and you draw a robot from that prompt every day. And I actually filmed the entire challenge in 4-week videos. So I leave the playlist down below if you want to check it out and see where this piece came from. But towards the end, they didn't really look like robots. I mean, from the beginning, they didn't really look like robots, but I kind of thought that was the point. That you create something, have fun, And a robot can look like anything. It's the future. Nobody knows what it looks like. Probably not like this. I love the concept. So it needs to look more like a robot. I love the flowers. I love the color. I love the shapes. I think it's a cool concept. And we finally get to do it justice. Something terrible has happened. The camera's corrupted. I painted the entire robot pink and you couldn't see it. We're now going in with this purple to color in the flower. But I'm sad. Literally painting the entire robot's base color was kind of one of the most important steps, maybe the most important step in this painting. I'm so sad that we lost the footage. It's happened a few times. Basically, every time the battery runs out in this camera, the footage gets corrupted, but it happens so quickly. The camera can be on like 40% and then it kind of runs out at like 20%. It's crazy. So yes, we did lose the footage and I am very sad about it, but there's still a lot of steps to do. The flowers are looking good. They are looking like flowers, but we also need to add flowers to the robot. That was a big part of their design. I don't know exactly where they're gonna go. Kind of similar to the original concept, but this is a different painting. We need to work with what's already down and figure out where it might go best. Though this is also pretty difficult to see without that line work, but that's gonna have to be one of the last steps. The line work is gonna go on top of everything, and it's kind of necessary, but I don't know if you can tell, this purple is not looking good. I think we're gonna need the acrylic markers. These are the most juicy ones I have, but you can't base it on the lids. We need to reach for the sketchbook that has all of the swatches in to try and pick our colors. There's a few purple shades, but I think this one is gonna be perfect. The lid looks different and we need to cover this up. We also need a couple of extra purple shades. Surprisingly, the acrylic wash actually looks really transparent, but it's also the wrong color. It's too bright. This acrylic marker looks a lot more muted and it doesn't clash as much with the robot. But we also need to add a little bit to the flowers because otherwise it's not gonna match. A great way to make a cohesive piece of art is to just sneak in every single color in multiple places. You can see the brightest part of the flowers are actually the robot's hair, and it's finally time to add that line work. And I don't know about you, but I think this piece is now finally coming together. I can see the vision. I wasn't sure about this step initially, but you know what? I think the line work makes it. Even if it was completely terrifying to do. Like, we need to add the eye. How am I supposed to add eyeliner and an eyelid that can't really be altered? Saying that, I do think the brush tips made it a million times easier. I never would have been able to do this with a paintbrush. And you know what? It kind of works. It does have that weird combination of human and robot features. And all that's left to do with this final color is add the center of the flowers and then add that same color to the big flowers around the outside. And you know what? We are done. And we have a new final step. Switch on the printer, pop the paper under, and make a nice big scan. But can you believe how good this looks? I have never seen my art up close like this. It's crazy. And now that's done, we need to cut it up. It's a pretty good size. There isn't much to lose. Obviously, we have to cut off the edge that was spiral bound and I ripped it out. This is needed, but this isn't my biggest concern. We have to cut the robot in half, but the robot is mostly on the left. Is this gonna work? I don't want a huge white strip, but I really don't want to lose any of the robot. Let's see. Let's add some glue, stick it down and see if it's worked. It looks a pretty good size. But now for the right side, we need to cut out the prompt. I have started to remember this step. Try not to put too much detail in the section where the prompt is because I always forget it needs to be cut out, but not this time. And this is the first painting of this robot character. So let's have a look at the final pieces. dishes. First up, we created a menu. Everything you need for a good dinner. Used a cutting knife for the first time, and I think we made something that's pretty cute. The second prompt was a redraw, a little bit more robot-like, and I love it. This episode has been crazy different to what we usually get up to. I love using tons of different mediums. If you've missed any episodes, the playlist is down below. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.